this panel today with everyone. And so those of you that are joining, those of you that are tuned in, I know that we've received a lot of feedback and a lot of excitement for today's topic. So we definitely encourage you to put your questions, your comments in the chat so that we can include you in our conversation. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Monisa Mason, and I am the founder and co-host of Mixed Company. Today is the ladies only, so my co-host Ray is not with us today, but we send him our love. The fellas had their session last month, so today is all about us. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have all of our participants just go around and briefly introduce themselves so that you all know who we have in the room. So Ms. Haley, can you tell us who you are and tell us where you're located?
Sure. So my name is Haley, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised. I went to college initially in Pennsylvania. I have a business degree, went back for nursing, and then went back again for anesthesia. I currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and my connection to Mo is I've been with her good friend, dating him for 3 years almost at this point in time, and I'm just so excited to converse with you ladies today. I'm so happy and excited to be here with you.
All right, Mylan, if you want to go next.
Hi everyone, I'm Mylan. I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio as well, but I've been in Columbus for almost 3 years next month. I'm happy to talk about today's topic.
Awesome, thank you. Katina?
Hi, my name is Katina Bays. I'm originally from New Jersey. I've been in Ohio for about 17 years, and I'm also excited to be here this evening.
Chandala?
Hello, my name is Chandala Rogers. I'm born and raised in Cleveland. I'm excited as well to be here.
Thank you, thank you. And Ms. Brooke?
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooke Tyus. I am currently in Shaker Heights, Ohio, but I grew up in Warrensville Heights, Ohio. And I've pretty much been here my whole life with a few stints in and out of Ohio. And I'm so excited to talk about this topic. And I'm looking forward to seeing what everyone has to say.
Yes, yes, I agree. Davia?
I'm Davia Stevenson. I'm in Columbus, Ohio. Been here about 20 years by way of New Jersey and Chicago and a number of other places, but love this topic. Friendships are so important. And so I'm thrilled to be here.
All right, and last but not least, Ms. Janiqua.
Like I'm always last. So my name is Janiqua. I am originally from Cleveland and I now reside in Columbus, and I've been here for about 6 years now.
All right, so ladies, are you ready to jump into these questions? I'm so excited. You all submitted a lot of amazing questions, and we won't be able to get through every single one of them, but I tried to pick some of the ones that I felt would spark really great dialogue. So thank you for taking the time to submit these questions. And so we're going to jump right into it. And, as something speaks to you, as it comes to your heart, feel free to just jump right on in and express, how you feel on that particular question. So to get us started, the first question is, what causes people to gravitate toward each other when you first are beginning a friendship? And I'll read that again. What causes people to gravitate towards each other when you are first starting a friendship?
I could start.
Okay.
I would like to say that I think the essential piece to what gravitates you to a person is generally common instances or common things that you share with that person. And I think a core component of that, or discovering that, is how organic it happens. Oftentimes, if you do an inventory of your friends, you might find that the ones you're closest to, you didn't meet in a formal setting. It kind of just happened, and then one day you've been friends for a long time. So I feel like those things happen organically when you have a lot of common, and those things come out early on in the interaction.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I think the same. I think, it's that elusive kind of chemistry that happens. So, proximity, you gotta be near somebody, right? There's something about the common space that you meet that already speaks to something in common. But I can think of people that I've been friends with most of my life, and then some newer friends where there's just the same, very instant, some connections are instant and deep, and some are slow growing, but there's almost no real science to it. It's I like organic, or chemistry is what it feels like to me.
And I also think that there is so much to be said about like the ease of the progression in a relationship as well. Like it was put so much more eloquently, but the vibe, just kind of feeling each other out, being open-minded, being willing to learn about the other person, and kind of take the education that they give you, apply it to yourself, apply it to your situation, but learning from them. But I think that how easy and effortless it becomes is so important, because relationships, friendships you just place so much importance on trust and comfort,
I agree. I think it's like what everybody was saying, but I like to really put the title of dating on it. Like I call it dating because you literally go through a bunch of questions and you see whether you want to vibe with that person or not, no matter if it's a female or a male. So I like to say dating.
I like the twist on that. I do.
I've never referred to it that way. Yeah.
I'm not, me neither, but you actually do go through those, the process of, I don't want to say vetting, but you go through that process of saying, is this a good fit for this particular time in my life? And I think that's important too.
Yeah.
I
certainly-
would agree. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I think in addition to just sort of looking for those shared and common themes that you have in common, for me, it's very important to surround myself with people who I always say, let me be my unapologetic self. I think I bring a great deal to friendships, but I also bring flaws too. And so I definitely look for people that's going to accept me as the package that I am. And when I can see that that's being done from a very genuine space, there's definitely that natural gravitation toward that person.
And I agree with what everyone is saying. But I really heard the word proximity, and I believe, like, as children, we meet friends, in school just because it was proximity based. You have your friends in your neighborhood. But I also think about me growing up in that social media digital age of, you're connecting with people via social media, chat lines and things like that. I met like so many great people just based off of my interests, but we weren't proximity wise, but it was interest based. So you can also create great friendships through those bonds as well.
That's actually how I met Janiqua. I can't remember how it started, but I think there was like some type of exchange on social media, and that's how we actually became friends. So it's so crazy how some of the people that become the closest to you are people that you meet just from talking to each other on social media, liking a post, and then you're like, you know what? I like your energy just through the social media. And so yeah, I can definitely relate to that. I know for me, those of you that like really know me, I'm big on energy and vibes. And so when I first meet you, whether it's through social media or whether it's in person, I gravitate towards people where it's just something about the energy and the vibes. It doesn't feel forced. It feels natural. In that moment, I just feel comfortable, even though you're a complete stranger. So that's something that really helps me to kind of discern if this is somebody that I could see myself developing a friendship with, or even just an associateship with. I don't even know if that's a word, but that's something that really kind of gives me the green light or the yellow light or the red light as far as if I want to move forward with developing a friendship. Like Katina, I met her through one of my best friends. And when I first met her, I fell in love. I was like, oh my God, it was like love at first sight. So that's just an example of, you know, how that is when you're first meeting someone for the very first time. And even Davia, like I met her, it was kind of like a blind date, right?
Yeah, it was.
It was literally a blind date. She knows my aunt. We met up, we did dinner and drinks. It was our first time meeting, and we sat there for hours just having conversation like we had known each other forever. So for me, it's really important for those vibes and energy to be on point. Did anybody else have anything to add? Go
I
ahead.
was just loving all these words like energy, vibe, what did we say, chemistry, all that kind of stuff. I was thinking, since this is a group of women in particular, okay, I know I'm making a gender bias statement, but whatever. We have intuition. There's a thing like our gut, our intuition, whatever, and we often go against that. And it's not like it's this woo-woo undefined thing. We're processing in the back. We really do have more tracks in our mind that are going. And so we're making some logical connections, even though it all feels like it might be an emotional connection. Intuition is layered. And so I think that's probably a part of it too, when we listen. Like how many times do we get down the road and we're like, you know, I had a feeling, or I thought I should have known. I knew, and we didn't, but we did know, and we talked ourselves out of it because that logic wasn't up front. That logic was kind of operating in the back of our minds.
I was going to say, to add to that, you know, friends have red flags too, just like our partners, our intimate partners. But I think the biggest thing that stood out to me, and I didn't mention this as my reason, but it's kind of the same. Milan and Davia talked about proximity. And I remember someone saying to me a few years ago, you have so many friends. But I also realized that from a very young age, I made associations based on different parts of my life. So I had a core group at church, I had a core group at school, I had a core group in the sorority, I had a core group in the music scene. You know, like I had people that were very important to me because of those common interests that we shared. And sometimes they would overlap, obviously. But I think that when you're a multifaceted person or you have many life experiences, when you gravitate to those people. And I think it's okay to have 3 friends, and I think it's okay to have a lot of friends, as long as you're giving yourself authentically and in whole and not just pieces and parts.
That's good. That's good. Does anybody else have anything to add before I jump to the next question? All right, awesome. Okay, so the next question is, what is your personal definition of friendship, and what are the 3 most important characteristics of a friend to you? Make you think a little bit. And I'll read that question one more time.
just about to
Go ahead, Janiqua.
No, I was about to say, repeat it one more time.
Repeat it. Okay. What is your personal definition of friendship, and the 3 most important characteristics of a friend? And for those that are just tuning in, thank you for watching Mixed Company. Please share this on your page so that others can watch and join the conversation and leave feedback. Ladies on the call, feel free to share this on your page as well so that people can follow. Once they follow Mixed Company, then they can participate in the conversation. But how do y'all define friendship? Or even if you don't have a definition for friendship, the second part, what are 3 things that are really important to you in a friendship? You can answer both or one or the other.
I'll go first.
Okay.
The 3 things that are very important to me in a friendship is loyalty, honesty, and how can I call this? Someone said it before, just kind of being able to accept me for who I am. So being open. And I don't really have a definition of friendship. I just, because those definitions have changed. You know, I thought when I was younger, I had a definition of friendship. It's multifaceted. I heard someone say that. And it does depend on where that friend is in my life and what that friend brings to my life. But I have learned not to say friend lightly. But loyalty, because I'm a loyal person, I think that's important to me. And honesty, and being able to be open and accept, me, because I'm a lot. No, I mean,
So Shantala, I have a question, and then we can
Yes.
get someone answer. So you said that over the years, your definition or what you need in a friend has changed over the years. Can you think of, or can you maybe explain where that came from, or how that came about, that made you realize that as you were getting older, your needs were starting to change? Did maybe a certain experience happen, or like, what was that point where you realized that I need something different?
I think what experiences have come with different people.
Mhm.
And also I'll say when I may have been betrayed. And so I had to redefine, first of all, who I am and what I want out of a friendship. So I wanted to give that same energy back as someone gave to me in a positive manner. And just like Divya said that, that same, oh God, what did she say? You just said, you said it a while back.
Intuition, that?
Yeah, it's about intuition. You if that person is good for you, but because I'm a person that don't like to see, okay, maybe they need another chance, or maybe they didn't understand what was going on. I stopped that once I defined who I am and what I want out of friendship. Do you kind of understand what I'm?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
I totally do. I feel like Shondala, like I don't even really need to talk. Like you were totally hitting all the things that I feel. I was thinking that loyalty was my number one. And I know that that's something you discover over time as you take little risks, as you get closer to somebody. But I know that I'm a very loyal person, but once you experience betrayal, then you see what that means, right? And so that's huge for me, that I love that idea of just being able, I am so put off by pretense. I don't really care what you have. Whether you have titles and money or not, I don't really care about that. I'm not really interested in that. I think nothing's eternal but people. So all that stuff's not going with you anyway. So that doesn't carry that much value to me. But that space of loyalty, well, I guess honesty is the word. I can't think of the word, but just know I don't like fake. I don't, and I've also come to, I think part of what, as I've gotten older and friendships carries a different meaning to me, it's changed over time. I'm okay with putting people in different lanes. Like I have those that are all here. You can get my dreams, you can get my pains, you can get those things that I'm embarrassed about. You're the person who will, and mutually, I will celebrate your wins and I'll grieve with you in your losses, right? Everybody can't get that. And I was often too soon to bring everybody into this. Now I'm like, there's some here. There's some here. There's some out here. And there are others that, and I just feel like I'm so much more genuine now that or safe, I should say. I think I'm always genuine, but so much more safer now that I'm okay with you being in this particular space. You might be my social friend. Like if I want to party, if I want to just laugh, I'm hanging out with you. It might not be this one for that thing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm saying that very eloquently, but
I agree with you, Davey. Like, and also what Shondala said, I'm at a pivotal point in my life. Becoming a mother 10 years ago, and then most recently within the last year with my last child, my demands have changed immensely. I used to go until I hit a wall before I had my first child. Like we could go out, I'd go out on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, go and do it again the next week. And when I became a mother, I wasn't able to show up for others in the same way that I used to. And I was also the later bloomer of parents in my friend group. All of my friends had their kids 10 years before me. So just where I'm at in my life, I've had to actually navigate what does friendship mean to me. And I think everyone has very many different definitions of what loyalty looks like, and what loyalty is. Some people want blind loyalty even when they're the bad actor. I'm pretty fair, and that might be the legal side of me, being able to point out issues on both sides and being able to work through them. And I've always been like that before I was a lawyer, but I think one of the biggest qualities that I enjoy in my friendships, that I can think about all of them across even the different lanes, is our sense of humor. One thing that I love about my friendships is that belly aching laughs. So I need to have those with you. Otherwise, it's just going to be kind of mundane. I'm a big goof troop. So aside from those innate qualities that we want to have at a baseline, I want to have that humor, sense of humor. And like Chandala, I really want to be accepted, flaws and all. That's not to say that I should go off and just do whatever I can and hope that you'll just deal with me. But I would expect that when I am not so savory, that I'm given some grace. And then the third thing that I enjoy about my friends, like my core friend groups, I like whether you're a professional or a mother or things like that, I do like that my friends are on top of their stuff. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's your household, whether it's your career, anything that you're interested in, you're working towards it, you're actively engaged in it, and seeking, resources from our friendship to help get you to the next level. So driven is, I guess, the term that I would like to think about. So a strong sense of humor, driven, and graceful, I guess, are the three things that I would look for in a friendship.
I'm going to repeat the question for those that are, one second, Haley. I'm going to repeat the question for those that are just joining our Facebook Live. The question for the panel is, what is your personal definition of friendship, and/or what are the three most characteristics of a friend? So go ahead, Haley, what do you have for us?
I mirror everything so far that, Chandala, you said, Davia, you've said, Brooke. It's interesting. Friendships are, to me, it's, and I think it was Brooke it was Davia. I think you said you have some people here, and some people here. I think the bond of a certain exclusivity is what makes a friendship. And that's not to say I'm not willing to provide meaningful relationship or friendship with people. I am more than willing to meet and interact. But you have your people, and it's the importance that I place on them and what they are to me and in my life. I think that makes the difference. And in my adult life, probably relatively recently, I have come to embrace the fact that I am going to believe people are who they show me to be. And I'm going to embrace that. And not everybody is for me. And I may not be for everybody, but I think I've just gotten maybe more and more comfortable with self. So I've accepted that a little bit more. Maybe your expectations are too high for everybody, because your core people and those who are in your heart, they're not like everybody else, right? They have your back. They're understanding, they give you grace, but they're also truthful and they're honest. And I think we've all heard the saying, your meanest friend is the one that cares about you the most. I don't endorse the mean as the adjective, but being honest with your people doesn't mean you're the bad guy, right? And I think I place so much importance, especially on my friendships that I've had forever with my girls from when we were little girls. They'll say, Haley, come on now. You're being, you're doing this, you're doing that. What are you thinking? Screw your head on a little tighter, and I just so appreciate that, the bluntness of it.
So it's so interesting that, the different comments that have come up in regards to this particular question. So I just had a conversation with some girlfriends this past Sunday. And one thing that I was sharing with them is, even at the age of 37, I'm starting to look and redefine what friendship looks like. And I'm learning that how I view friendship is a lot different than how the majority views friendship. And I realized that, Haley, you talked about expectations. And one thing that I had to realize very recently is that my expectations for my friendships have been higher than what they should have been. My expectations have always been what I give, I expect back. With the type of friend that I am, I expect that back. And I think that the expectations are there that high because fortunately, I've been blessed to have some great girlfriends over my life. I have not really had any betrayal or someone stabbed me in the back. Yes, I've outgrown friends, but I've never had like a dramatic situation with a friend. And so because I have had such great core group of friends, they have set the standard, right? So they make me think that, oh, well, this is what I'm used to. So all my friends should be like this. And it wasn't until recently that I realized that every friendship that I develop is not going to be like that. Putting people in those lanes that you guys spoke about is very foreign to me. I've never had to put people in lanes because all of my friends have been everything. My friend that I'm kicking it with is also the friend I can pray with, right? The friend that I can pray with is also the friend that I can travel with. So putting people in the lanes of, oh, you're just my friend that I kick it with. Oh, you're just my friend that I can have serious dialogue with. That is just foreign to me. So I'm still learning how to do that. But I think one thing that I recently realized, which is what I was sharing with my friends the other day, is another reason that I think that I take friendships so seriously and I take things so personal when it comes to my friendships is because I grew up the only child, the only niece, and the only grandchild. So I didn't grow up around a whole bunch of family members around my age. So my family, it was my friends. Those were my sisters. And that was one of the reasons that I joined my sorority, for that sisterhood, because I didn't have any of that growing up. And so how I view the women in my life, I hold those relationships very near and dear to my heart. And my friends talk about me all the time because they're like, Monisa, you just become friends with everybody. And who are these randoms? And who are all of these people? And it's just like, I like meeting people. I like connecting people. I like establishing friendships. And so once I let you in my life, I hold you close to my heart, right? Like, that's just how I am. Once that connection is made, you got me, and you got me until you don't have me. And so when I feel like there isn't reciprocity, or when I feel like things are off balance or whatever the case may be, I know that I take it very personal, maybe more personal than somebody else would, because what I view as friendship, I also look at sisterhood. And so I have to navigate that differently, because I'm only disappointing myself by having those high expectations and realizing how I view and navigate friendships is not how every woman in my life views and navigates friendships. And it doesn't make them a bad person, right? It's just, we're different. And so that's something that I'm just now learning at the age of 37. So, this conversation in general, even though I feel like it's a conversation that most women can relate to, is also very personal for me, specifically in the season that I'm in right now. So,
Monisa, you brought up something really important or interesting to me, because on the flip side from you, the reason why I'm so intentional about my friendships are because I grew up in a house majority women. So I have 5 sisters, and then I went on to join a sorority. And then, I was in a singing group. So I got those people, that I grew up with, doing music with. And it just, I learned at a very young age how to deal with cat fights and, with my sisters, and how to, make up, and love on each other in spite of it. So the concept of, a friend that comes along, they can become your sisters too, because you've had so much experience learning how to work with them. So people would always say, you always have so many. I said, well, it's a lot. I have a lot of love to give. And I made up an analogy to a friend, because I had a friend that often asked me where she stood in my life, because I have, my childhood besties, and I had these little pockets. And I said, well, I kind of look at it like a diagram where you have a core in the middle, and then you have the inner ring, and then the outer ring. And so it's so funny that Davia said that. And I said, but these people are still special to me, and I call them for certain things. And it's important that I keep that dynamic that way, because from even a younger age, I had girlfriends in high school who necessarily didn't want to hang with each other, but they were tight with me. And so I wasn't going to not be friends with that girl because so-and-so didn't like her. I was able to maintain those relationships, and up until like my adult life, where things get a little bit more muddier. But I will say that when you have friendships that are motivated kind of like by your upbringing, or like, if you didn't have, if you're only child versus having lots of siblings, they can fuel how you show up in relationships for sure. Because I know it did for me in a positive way, just like it did for you in a positive way.
I think
receive that.
I think continuing on with that, my educational journey was a little bit different in that I was in Jersey until I was 14, and then I went off to boarding school, and I have not returned home since. And so at a very young age, I think that that's when I knew that there was a sense of importance on friendships. I call a lot of my friends my family, because they are friends in both family. They've walked this journey with me, for a very long time. And so I think because I left home at such an early age, I realized that I needed to have that extension in order to keep on growing. A lot of my friends from boarding school will tell you, the Katina I am right now is not the Katina that they met. And I love that, because when I can get my groups together, they can really talk about my progression. Mo, when you were talking, I think that you hit on a lot of the points that I was going to hit on. I will say though, when it comes to reciprocity, one of the things that I have absolutely learned is to be more vocal about my needs in friendship. I am that friend that's going to send the text of, how are you doing? Is everything okay? I saw that post. I'm a little worried. But I also have to remind my friends, like, I come off as that strong friend, but I need you to show up for me the same way. So I think I have certainly become a lot more intentional about saying, and much like we stated at the beginning, it is kind of like dating. I'm going to tell you what I need for this to be successful and for us to keep on growing.
That is so true. I am very vocal in my friendships. And one thing that I can appreciate, even about just like my closest girlfriend group, like my best friends, is it legit is a sisterhood where we can be very raw, upfront, and tell each other how we feel. Like, I didn't like it when you did this, or you made me feel away when you did this. Like, we can have those very, what someone would think is an uncomfortable conversation. We can have the conversation and then we keep it moving, right? There's no bad blood. There's no harboring any ill feelings, because you're going to have the uncomfortable conversations. Just like in dating with your friendships, you have to have the uncomfortable conversations. And, some people may think that I come off strong, or that maybe I shouldn't speak everything that comes to mind. But if you're my friend and I care about you, I'm going to tell you when something hurts me. And because I can't hold on to it, it's just going to boil up. But if I'm telling you that you hurt me, it's because I care about you. And it's because I'm trying to fix things before it gets to a point where I cut you off. And so I think sometimes, people don't understand the importance of being able to be vulnerable in your friendships and being able to be just raw upfront and, hey, I didn't like this, and it may not come off in the best way, but it's coming from a place of care, concern, and love. And so I think that that is something that is very important when we talk about characteristics that are important in a friendship. Being able to be very upfront with your friends, letting them know how you feel, how they made you feel, and that they can receive that with love. They can hear you, they can understand. And just like in a dating relationship, okay, what do we do to fix this? How do we move forward from here? And it doesn't mean it has to be bad blood. And so I think, sometimes people take things personal, but it's never personal. That's just how you develop a healthy friendship, just like you develop a healthy relationship with your significant other. You have to have those uncomfortable conversations. So that's definitely me. We gonna have a conversation. We definitely gonna have a conversation.
And one thing I wanted to piggyback off of what Katina was saying, which I think is so important, is your true friends respect and admire and encourage your evolution and your progression. And I'm raising eyebrows at those who have something to say about me not being the same Haley I was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. It's a little red flaggy, because that's what we're supposed to do. Life itself relationships, every facet is trial and error. And we're creating our own path, and we find things out as we go. We discover self as we go. So what Katina said, I just think that was so important, because those are the people that you want in your corner that are like, right on, do what you got to do, what makes you happy, what fulfills you, what you place importance on, I place importance on by default, because you're my real friend.
I'm thinking about one of the things that I think is so, all of you have said. And I think I started off in my friendships like you, like everybody's here. I expected that kind of, and I think honestly, it has been as I've grown and been able to be more of myself. I'm thinking about one of my best friends for many years. And I remember her pulling me aside one time and saying to me, I'm gonna need you to be more self-aware. You are this, and this. I don't know why you don't see it. I'm gonna need you to be a little more self-aware. And at first I was like, oh, thank you, Lisa, just because you love me. But she's like, no, I'm gonna need you to hear what I'm saying to you right now. And she's also the first one to cheer me on. I am in my 50s, late 50s, and I am more me than I've ever been. And I didn't even know that. I didn't know that I wasn't fully me, because I've been evolving. And, I'm, even my kids, and my kids are adults now. My oldest child had a baby a few months ago, so I'm a grandmother. Like, I can't even get my head around that. And they look at my husband and I, and they're like, who are you people? We're free. We are so free. And what I said was like, we're the people that don't have to set a good example for you anymore. So we're just having a good time. But there is a sense of evolution, and there are some that have, what's the word? The importance of reciprocity. And I'm thinking about Chandala, and those of you who are in like the helping professions, it's kind of how you are. I would imagine there's at least been a period in your life where your relationships were not balanced. I know I was usually that one that was the giver. And it took me accepting responsibility for that. I'm like, I'm part of the setting up of the dynamic. And so it's my fault that you don't see me as having needs, even when I express them. So now the relationships I'm in are far more reciprocal. But the other thing that's been wild to me is seeing, I would say in the last decade or less, this space of the 50s, it's like I've seen more female drama than I've seen since middle school. I still don't understand it. I'm trying to understand the developmental, I don't get it. Maybe it's a comparison. I don't get it. It's such a waste of time. We don't have enough, we in the last less than half of our lives. Why would we waste our time with pettiness? I don't get that.
Listen, people have a new stage now. We have a new stage now, and things that you had to call and get somebody on a landline for, meet up at the club or whatever happens, you can do it right in your living room now. That's why you see a heightened sense of interaction, and people aren't taking the time to sit when you can instantly tell your thoughts before you cool down. You're already, you haven't picked up the phone and called the person, because now I can go to my phone and do it like that. You didn't call, but you can go to the internet, so, that's how it be.
I love what you said, because I just turned 50 last year. So I am in love with 50. I was in love with 40, but let me tell y'all something. I love being 50. It is nothing like it. It is very liberating. I'll say that. I thought 40 was liberating. I said, oh, I'm 40, I'm liberated. But I'm really like, this is me. I accept me for who I am. You can be on board or not, but I will still do what I need to do. Yeah, because people tell me all this, oh my God, you 50, you changing your career. Yes, and God will make a way like he always has. Because I think that's correct. Want to have a friend, and a friend accepts that, like, oh my gosh, are you doing that? Instead of saying, oh my gosh, you really gonna do that? Now, I hear what I'm saying. It's been people that have been in my life that had those, some in here, some out there that said that. And that let me notice, is there some comparison? Has there ever been some envy? Are we trauma bonding? because I will tell you something too, and I'm sorry to use that trauma bonding, but people, sometimes you have people in your life or friends that when you were going through hell, they were there with you. But I know all of you can be on here to notice that when you came up and was lifted, they were gone, or they constantly bring up when you were down. That's what I mean by trauma bonding. You know, they okay. They want to remember that time when you were down, because that's how you all bonded. And sometimes people stay there, Divya. You see what?
So let
They
me ask
stay
you
there.
this: at your age, do you find it harder to make new friends at your age? Because I'm only 31, so I know it's hard for my age, but I'm wondering if it's harder for in your age bracket.
It's
I'm
been
over here.
easier for me. I don't know
Yes,
about you in the last few, easier.
It's easier.
Okay.
It's easier. It's easier because, like right now, that's my girl. Divya, I'm on here. I'm like, yes, I got a car when we get off here. Like, I mean, it's just because you find a commonality. Like someone else said, Brooke said, you know, they have their things together. They, you know, they're moving on a different path. She has a grown child. I have a grown child. I don't have to be good anymore if I don't want to be.
Yeah.
You know, I am taking care of my mother. So it's a lot of different dynamics when you become a little older, that some people that you knew before may not be going through those same things. But I also have learned that people are watching me at every moment, even though I may not have to be good for somebody. It's someone younger that's watching me and watching how I move and watching what I do. And so I make sure that I tell young ladies, you know, all the time that, and when I say young ladies, I mean people in their 30s too, y'all. I'm sorry. But that, you know, be careful who you have around in your circle, and make sure you know who you are. And when you feel as if you're out of sorts, come back and refocus. And sometimes when you refocus, that means you might have to shut down that social media. You might have to take back and say, I can't talk to you right now, and be okay with that. I think as women, we're not okay when we say no. No is a complete sentence.
Amen.
No is a complete sentence.
Boundaries.
And as friends, we have to be able to say no to some of our friends. Because I know I can look at my phone right now, and I'm honest, somebody on here might know. And it's that person, and you know that, y'all, I gotta be real. You know that person.
We
And
said honesty.
when they call you, like, oh man. You know what I'm saying? Because they coming with that good old drama. They're coming with some things, and you try to be like, okay, I'm tired of, you know, but I'm going to listen. But the drama that you're explaining, I don't know if it has to do with some childhood things that maybe some people haven't dealt with. And I'll put this out here. I'll say everyone, but people, especially African American women, have a hard time with accepting some things that may be wrong, and then we have to try to get some help, and we run one place, and that's not the place where we need to go. I always tell people, if your arm was broken, you don't go to the doctor. So if your mind is not together, you need to seek some help. And that goes, and Haley, please don't take that the wrong way. That goes with women anyway, but what I know, because I'm only talking about the culture that I'm in, that you know, that has been an issue. And because people deal with so many levels of pain and trauma and hurt, and they project it out on you. And so some people don't even know how to be friends. And so then now you're trying to teach somebody how to be a friend. Then you're trying to teach somebody not to befriend, not to treat you wrong, and to make sure that you're safe, that you are safe within yourself. So I think friendship, or being a friend, or having people around or whatever, it's important to know you. I think it always has to come back to you. And it does evolve, guys. It really does. It does change. you will come to a point where it's like, I have these core people that's right here. And then I have some people that's out here. And I know it seems like that sounds crazy. I'm also in a sorority. So, but it does. Sometimes it will happen like that. And sometimes it won't. I have 5, I can name you 6 people right now that are my core. I love them. They've known me one since 16, one since college, you know, but they know me and I can be real with them and I can be dynamic with them. But I also know some people that I've just met in 5 years that that I can also be real with. So.
Well, Shangela, I definitely appreciate all of your wisdom. That I think you touched on something we can all relate to at some point in our life, whether it was in the past or in the present. So thank you so much for that. So I'm going to move on to the next question. I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So ladies, why do women tend to give their romantic partners more grace than they give their friends?
Ooh.
Let me read that
Everybody
again.
take a sip of a drink for that.
Let me read that one more time.
Wow.
Why do women tend to give their romantic partners more grace than they give their friends?
I should have just answered the last one because I can't even answer that one. I'm gonna let y'all ladies answer.
Why? I'll tell you why. Well, here's my theory. I won't say that I have the answer on the topic. I think that society has taught us since little girls, and we can use the terms patriarchy. So the patriarchal society has taught us that we have to aspire to marriage and to become mothers, and not careers, not to have either a number of friends or find your core friends. We're always told that we have to find that mate, that lifelong partner, especially in heterosexual relationships. And so I think that there is a subconscious effort to give our intimate partners more chances when they're not deserving, because we're, I guess, in hindsight, always working towards that goal to become a wife or become a mother, whichever comes first. And whereas your friends, you're like, oh, I can make more friends, but I don't know if I'm gonna find someone to love me for the rest of my life as easily as I can make friends. I've actually, I won't say that I have given my friends, my intimate partners more grace than my friends, because I used to always tell me and my best friends, our philosophy was, or just I would say my best friend from high school, our philosophy was like, when I'm getting into it with you, I'm calling my friend. I was like, I don't sleep with my friends, so there's no cloudy judgment there. So I, in the reverse, often was always in like friendship things, like the tug of war, as opposed to relationship tug of wars, because at the end of the day, you either gonna choose to be with that person or not. But I think the reason why most women will give their man money chances over like their friend is because they on the value poll, your intimate partner is here. I mean, and they also tell you that after marriage in certain religions, like your spouse comes first before your parents and your kids after you get one. And so it's like, it's been ingrained for so long that I think that pretty much drives us, even when we're not particularly in the permanent role with that person.
So Rocky said in the comment, she said, we're taught to keep men, not friends. And Tamara, hopefully I'm saying that correctly, said, and it's so unfortunate that we feel that way because our friendships are just as important and necessary. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to that specific question? Go ahead.
I do think that there is, whether it be, I'm aware of it now, but maybe earlier on in, my adult life, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, I do think, like Brooke was saying, there is a societal pressure placed on us to prioritize even just the thought or the idea that there should be a fear associated with being alone. And I think at impressionable points in our lives, we let that concept in, and it does, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody, it does have a certain influence. But like we've all said before, then again, we evolve. I don't know if like Brooke, alluded to, I don't know that I've ever been in a situation where I can look back and say that I have given more passes to somebody I've been in like a relationship with versus friendship, because I've always, like Mo, like you were saying, we love hard and we have high expectations. And it's only been until very recently in my adult life where I've said, okay, I'm the one to blame to a certain extent for, I don't know, allowing myself to have these high expectations when it just doesn't match the relationship or the friendship that I'm in. But I think, kind of alluding to what Brooke was saying, I do think that there's a societal pressure. And like I said, I kind of can't really pick for myself, but I do think that that plays a huge, huge part in why we do that.
I also agree with what Brooke and Haley both said. Like, there is a societal pressure there. I know from my childhood, my mom was always like, those heifers ain't your friends, and women, you can't trust them around your man and stuff like that. Like, very toxic things that I can realize now. So it's like always putting like that man on the pedestal. Like, you want to make it work. We always want to make it work with the men. Just looking, generational, our grandmothers stayed with, their husbands. I mean, they had other families and all this and that. And, you probably had a friend like, he cheating on you. And it's like, girl, whatever, I'm gonna just make it work and all of that. So it's like all of that from generational, we're kind of taught that. And it sucks because it's like, we kind of have this thought process, like our friends will always be there. Like, we could fall out, like I'll cut them off, but like, what if I lose out on this one time for real true love, if it really is love?
I agree. I just think the whole construct of society is based on that, right? So even your fairy tales, Prince and Princess and Prince Charming, marriage is a contract and a covenant and all of these things, and so it's so elevated that it's this bond, like the two shall become one, like it's this bond that is supposed to be so hard to break. I tell you, if it were up to me, it'd be much harder to get married and much easier to get divorced. I just think it's backwards in many ways. But yeah, everything. How many of you were asked when you were a little girl, said, do you like that little boy? Is that your boyfriend? Those kind of things were always, from early on, that's the grounding. And so we think we're out there looking for our soulmate. And that's rarely put in the friendship space. You don't have a contract, a ceremony, or a covenant generally with friendships. And they are absolutely essential to how we grow, how we see ourselves. Oftentimes are the safer relationships. But there would have to be a whole change in how society is structured for many beyond generations of the eras, so, and I think it creates a distortion, keeps people in unsafe places sometimes.
That's good. I'm going to actually move on to the next question. So how can you be a supportive friend while your friend isn't making the best life choices? So if you don't agree with the things that your friends are doing, the choices that they're making, how do you continue to be a supportive friend? What does that look like? Or do you cut them off? Maybe you're the type of person that cuts them off. What is it that you do? Have any of you experienced that? What did that look like for you?
I actually just
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm driving now, so my video's off. But I actually just experienced that, and it went for like 5 to 6 months with me not knowing what to do. And it's funny that you just said, "What do you do?" Let me put my people. You was like, "What do you do? Do you cut them off or whatever?" But I think the problem that I had was I didn't know what to do, because what was going on it was stressing me out. Like, what she had going on was stressing me out, and it was putting so much on me that I didn't want the friendship no more. And this wasn't like a newly friendship. This was a friendship from years and years and years. And I just went through so much with that. But my conclusion was this: like, if you have pure motives in a friendship, your first thing is to ask that friend how should they support you. Like, how do you want to be supported? What does that look like? Because it's hard for me. Like, I'm very blunt. I'm very honest. So I can't sit there and say, oh, I hope this happens. I hope that happens, when it's clear that it's not, when it's like dead in your face, you know? So I'm not that friend that's going to sit there and lie to you to make you feel good, right? So I need to know how, like, what does that look like without me lying to you? Like, you know, so that's what my conclusion was. It's instead of me getting so frustrated and irritated, and also like, even like I said, I'm very blunt, but even with me like speaking up and saying everything that I need to say, I didn't have to do that. You just got to learn how to close your mouth and actually ask your friend how what does that look like? And if I asked that at the very beginning of everything, that would have took away everything.
So one of the comments in the thread comes from Devin. She says, you can be honest and transparent with them and maintain boundaries, heavy on the boundaries, and also communicate from a place of love and respect.
Yeah,
that's good.
I'll speak from both perspectives as the friend who was experiencing trials, or where I won't say necessarily bad choices, but just how I wanted that person to show up, or and then also being on the receiving end and how it would exhaust me. I'm in a season now where, because I am so stretched so thin between my career and my family, like I said, it has evolved the way I've been able to show up in my friendships. And for the most part, most of my relationships are intact, but in a few, I identified two things. One thing that Shandala brought up was trauma bonding. And I remember a point in time where I had like friends where we were bonding over issues we were experiencing at the same time in similar fashion, almost identical. And I had learned to not let it be the crux of my existence, in deciding that I want to be different about it and not complain every day, because I'm very solution oriented. So oftentimes people want to vent and they don't want you to tell them how to solve the problem. So in this season, I'm learning that instead of offering a solution, which is very direct and blunt, like Janiqua said, I get accused of attacking the person after I said to them, like, hey, well, you didn't even ask me if I had capacity to take on what you're talking about, or that you're refusing to deal with. And so right now, what I think the best way to do is, at the outset, ask that person, how do you want me to actively listen? Are you active? Do you want me to be a soundboard? Or are you looking for a solution? And after starting to do that, I've gotten accused less of being too harsh, and there, in my delivery about what should be done and what should happen. And then what I do now is, which I learned from my best friend, when I would call her complaining about what's going on in my life, she would tell me what she wanted to tell me in love, and then she created a hard boundary. I don't want to hear it anymore. Not like that, but I'm saying like that was kind of like the takeaway. It's like, okay, I've told you what needs to happen here after I've listened numerous times. I'm choosing to disengage from revisiting this conversation again. And now I'm using that in my other friendships. It's like, okay, when a person starts at the thing that they want to keep talking about, I disengage. I say, you know what, when you're ready to move forward, give me a ring. And that leaves the ball in their court. But if you keep that back and forth exchange, that's the fuel that keeps the mess burning. And I think when you're able to do things at the outset, you'll find that you will have all of everyone else's issues weighing on you in the same way that you have your own stuff to deal with. And I appreciate that from multiple friends, actually. I have had friends that, hey, you talked about this 15 times. What are you going to do about it? And I think that's kind of like what we need to do, as friends.
Haley, did you have something you wanted to contribute?
It is. It's just an interesting dynamic because I firmly believe, I completely agree with what Brooke said, and I am not the convenient friend. I'm here for you. I am always willing to try to engage, but like you said, you get to a point where you're either beating the dead horse, or your advice or suggestions, your truths are straining the relationship. So by us, me distancing myself from that situation doesn't mean I'm being not true to myself, or any less truthful in that situation, but it's almost like a protective mechanism, because their pain and their hardship is mine too. And I don't know if that's a healthy frame of mind for me to be in, but it just kind of goes back to the value and importance we place on those relationships. So I almost am like feeling a little bit for them with them, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But it is a protective mechanism. You gotta just the pros and cons and weigh it. And sometimes backing off is the best thing you can do, because it's their life,
I
I've
know
been actually,
go ahead, Mylan.
I've actually been dealing with this as well. And so it's just like, it's been hard because it's been hard for me to even show up for myself. And so to show up for my friends when they've been going through like a lot of different things. And it's like, do I disengage? Do I kind of ghost them? Do I say, stop, I don't want to hear this anymore? But then I feel bad, like, well, I'm their only friend. So who do they talk to? I don't want them to feel alone. So it's just like I literally am going through this right now. So it's really good to hear a lot of you all's perspectives, because it's like I love her as well. I'm like Monisa, I'm an only child. So a lot of my friends are my family. Those are my sisters. And so it's hard to see them put themselves into certain situations. And it's like, you don't have to go through this, but it's like, where do you put that boundary up of, keeping arm's length, but saying, I love you still, So I appreciate that.
And that's what I was going to speak to. And I know Devin spoke to that too in her comment about boundaries. I know when I was younger, my go-to was I cut a person off real quick. And I remember I had a really good friend that I had known since the 6th grade, and all the way until about our mid-20s, we were really close friends. And at that age, I was still young, immature. So I didn't know about boundaries. So I'm just like, I'm gonna just cut you off. But she would always complain about the same things over and over. And even my other friends who I had introduced her to would be like, every time we're all together, she talks about the same thing over and over. And it became such a burden. And so my thing then was I would just cut people off. Like there were no conversations, there were no boundaries. I just cut you off completely. But now that I'm older and, I'm starting to really understand and appreciate the importance of being able to set boundaries. I know there's a popular quote that, not verbatim, but it's something along the lines of people only have an issue with your boundaries if they're not benefiting from them, or something along those lines. And so kind of to Haley's point, just because you set a boundary with someone does not mean that the love is gone, that you don't care about them. What it says is that you care about yourself first and foremost. So for me to be the best friend, to be the best daughter, to be the best mother, to be the best girlfriend, whatever, I have to honor myself first. I have to make sure that I am whole, that I am aligned, that I am where I need to be mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Because if I'm not in tune with myself, then I can't be what you need me to be. So if I am going through something and I don't have the mental capacity to carry whatever it is that you have going on, as my friend, as my genuine, true friend that really knows me, you should be able to be okay and accept if I say, hey sis, I love you. I don't have capacity today. I'll pray for you. Let's revisit this conversation another time. And if that makes you feel away, if that makes you feel as though I'm acting funny, then okay, that just lets me know who you are in my life. And maybe you're not who I thought you were, right? That expectation. And so sometimes you have to kind of go through those no's right? That no, that period, I can't remember who said it earlier, no is a complete sentence. Sometimes you have to say that and see how a person responds to that, because you don't have to give an explanation to why you said no, why you're not picking up the phone, why you're not going to that event that they invited you to. Sometimes you have to just take care of yourself, and a true friend will understand and appreciate that. But on the flip side, I think communication is key. And I've seen this topic discussed on social media before, which I don't agree. I've heard people say, well, if you're going through something, you don't need to tell your friends that you're going to be MIA for a while. You should just be able to just pick back up like whatever. And a lot of people have agreed with that. I personally do not operate in that way. If you are my close friend, I'm not just going to disappear for weeks and months and not tell you what's going on. Maybe I'm not going to go into details, but I'm not just going to disappear for a long period of time without you at least knowing something. And there are people that feel as though you can just fall off the face of the earth from your friendships for months at a time and you don't owe nobody an explanation. And again, maybe I'm the only person that feels that way, but I don't agree with that.
I think it's taken out of context. That saying has been taken out of context to include some unhealthy, toxic things. And the reason why I say that is because I relocated before, and so I was away from all of my friends. But when I got back to Cleveland, we picked up where we left off. I think that we're talking about those types of things, or like one of my best friends lives in Vegas, or my other best friend, in very close fashion, lost both of her parents, and so she had to go through a grieving process where she wasn't kicking it all the time and in the mood for that. Those are the situations where I feel like you can pick up where you leave off. But if people are intentionally ghosting you, and even if the reason is a good one, I'm going through something I didn't want to share with you. I think core relationships have some type of foundation where even if I say I need some time, you're not going to leave me in the dark. And I can respect that you need the time, because my best friend didn't just not talk to me. She's just like, I need some time, this is really hard. And I would just do regular check-ins until she was ready to come back outside, and be a part of a social situation. And so I think that just to act like, I'm focusing on me, and we'll pick up where we left off, that's unacceptable, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think there's context matters in that scenario, because I feel like there's people who were my college roommates and people that I was in high school with that I haven't talked to in 20 years. Like, this is my 20th year since graduating from high school, and we call each other, we be on the phone for hours. And so that's the definition of picking up where you left off, because the foundation was solid to begin with.
All right, so I see that it is already 8:12. This time is flying when you're having good conversation. So I'm gonna try to get 2 more questions in before we end at 8:30. So let's just be mindful of our responses so that we can try to squeeze these last 2 in, because I think they're good topics to kind of end this conversation with. So the first question, the first of the 2 last questions is, can anyone provide an example of a toxic friendship that you were in, and how did you end it, or did you end it? Maybe you're still in that toxic friendship. What does that look like? I know toxic is the buzzword these days, right? Everybody's toxic. And I'm sure everybody's definition of what toxicity looks like is different, but have any of you been in a toxic friendship, and how did you end it, if you ended it at all?
I think for me, that question makes me think of a college friendship that, we shared some friends in common, but this friend was not exactly friends with that sort of core group of friends. And what would oftentimes happen is we would have this cattiness that's, I don't like this person because of X, or, just a lot of cattiness that I just was not open to, did not want to deal with. And I think for me, it felt like, and I had mentioned earlier, how being very genuine is very important to me. And I said, when I take a step back and I'm in a space where I hear of someone speaking of a friend so negatively, for two things. It made me think of the fact that you may do the same about me in another space. And I should not ever have to defend my friendships or the reason why I've chosen to have these relationships. So for me, it was just best just to end that friendship and sort of continue on, I think with probably, you know, those individuals that are in my core group that I was able to go on with. But I didn't like that sort of middle man, for lack of better words, that I played, and the fact that it sort of led to some trust issues. So that's what comes to mind for me.
So question about that, Katina. So how did you end that friendship? Was it a conversation or did you just like fall back and ghost?
I was in college and it was just a fall back and go. So it was just kind of like, no, I'm not going to be able to go to that party. No, I'm not going to be part of that study group and things like that. Obviously, now looking back, it could have been handled very differently. I will tell you that I ended up having a conversation with this friend later on after we graduated where we were able to talk about it. But at that point in time, it was just kind of like, I'm a gradually fall back and then just fade.
So I had a really good friend that, I don't know if I want to say toxic, maybe because we're in a public setting, but it was unhealthy and I was outgrowing the space that we were in. So I think to someone's point earlier, the friendship initially was very petty. We were petty. I mean, we were young. I can own it. I can be transparent. You know, we would make jokes about people. We would talk trash. Like it was that's just who we were. But then I got to a point where I just matured and I was like, this isn't cool, right? Like this isn't cool. Being petty, being negative. And this particular friend was a very negative person. I felt like always spoke negative about people, always had an attitude. People around me would be like, why are you friends with this person? You know, her energy is just a negative person to be around. And I would always take up for her because she was my friend. But then when I got to a point where I started to grow and evolve, the things that she had been doing our whole friendship, it just wasn't sitting well with my spirit anymore. Like it would just irritate me, even though those were the things that, you know, we were always doing. But I just got to a point where I was just like, I don't want to be this anymore. And while it could have been a conversation, it wasn't a conversation. I totally just fell back from that person completely. And just to your point, Katina, looking back, it should have been a conversation. But I think for me, it was an uncomfortable conversation that I didn't really want to have. How do you have that conversation, right? How do you tell someone, I don't want to be what you're doing anymore, right? Like, how do you have that conversation? And then also because I felt like that person was a negative person, I didn't want to deal with what may have came with that, like the attitude and the wall and the defense and all of that. I just didn't want to deal with what that response was going to be. So I felt, for me, I'm just going to bow out and I'm not going to have the conversation. And probably like a year later, it was on my heart and I'm like, Dad, like that was my homie. We should have had a conversation. And I tried to reach out to have a conversation and she shut my shit down. She was like, she was not trying to have a conversation with me at all. And her response was very nasty and negative. And I was like, well, Dad, okay. I guess you have the right to feel this way, but like, dang, like whatever. But I think that as I've gotten older, one of the reasons why I've become more and more vocal is because I understand that when you have a friend, they deserve a conversation, because if the tables were turned, you would want one, right? And so now I have those conversations. I have those uncomfortable conversations. But on the flip side of that, you also have to know your audience. And sometimes you have friends you can have uncomfortable conversations with, but sometimes in those more toxic situations, it may be better to not have a conversation than to have a conversation.
Well, yeah, I had a very, I would say, identical situation to what Katina has described, although it didn't occur until like my mid-20s. Historically, since I was a child, like I said, it was so very easy to make friends and maintain friends since kindergarten. And my first, like I've had arguments with my two besties, but nothing that went on entirely too long, like maybe a 6-month period where we was just, I ain't talking to you right now, one of those. But like around my mid-20s, I, became friends with a group of girls, and there was a lot of cattiness, pettiness, and it dragged out for like a decade. And what I learned from this situation, because I mean, there was no one bad actor, I would say, and I don't want to call it toxic, but maybe unhealthy friendships, because I just don't want to disparage anyone who may be watching. But I think that for me particularly, I spent 10 years doing the opposite of what you did, Monisa, which was trying to reconcile and, being the bigger person, apologizing for the role that I played and any of the issues that might have hurt feelings publicly and privately on social media, which is why I brought that up earlier, is how that, when you're little, you guys make up easier, but then when you get on social media, you start posting your initial thoughts while you're angry before your cool down period. And then you say some things that you probably didn't need to say, and then it's public and it's embarrassing and likened to almost a betrayal of sorts to the recipient. And so I spent a long time trying to be the kumbaya of this group of girls to say, hey, look, we're better than this. Let's just get back together. So we had such a great time. Let's just move forward. And I was all about moving forward, solution driven. And one of the biggest things that stuck with me, and like, even though we don't talk today, but what's resonated with me was forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. And so I had to learn that saying sorry wasn't enough for me to regain access. And I mean, even if it was painful to lose a friend, after having had a clean record, if you will, I took that one to heart a lot. And then, eventually got to a place where now that, like I said, I'm knee deep into motherhood and being a lawyer, I ain't got time. So I just faded to the black and said, good luck. If you ever need me in a crisis, call me. But I don't think this is a friendship that, serves me any longer. No bad blood. You're not gonna see no subtweets, nothing else. We're not doing that no more, or at least I'm not. So I think that it is hard, especially when you're navigating it for the first time. And because I have a very high threshold for both my intimate partners and my friends. We could have a nasty drag out argument or whatever, and then the next day I'm like, you want to go to lunch? And maybe that's not healthy, but my thing is, it's like I have an unconditional love for the people in my life. And so once I'm done being mad at you, it's kind of like, it's gone. You know what I'm saying? So, and when I approached it that way and saw that I wasn't getting that reciprocity, I learned that I needed to understand where people were in those different pockets so that I don't just get offended with, well, why you don't want to be my friend no more? It's okay now. I get it. We're done. That's it.
That's good. That's good. Well, I'm going to open up the floor for the very last question for these last 5 minutes or so. So the last question of the day is, what are your thoughts on men and women who consider themselves best friends? So like a guy and a girl being best friends, or your significant other having a best friend of the opposite sex?
You want to go, Davia?
Yeah, I'll speak to that one. Because I don't have a clear answer, but I know that I have two friends that have been my friends from childhood. They were my friends before I started dating my husband, who eventually became my husband. But I made sure they were like, you got to know Eric and John. Like, you have to know them. They're in my life. They're my brothers there. And so there was never, they're still my friends, lifelong friendships. I relate to them. We all live in different states, but that I see. But I've also experienced where I see unhealthy bonds across gender. So I don't know that there's a single principle for that. I think that if you have a significant other, that's a topic that needs to be, when I counsel couples, there's like 9 things, right, that I want you to discuss prior to marriage or early on in marriage. And one of them is, how are you going to handle relationships with opposite sex people? And whatever you all agree to, and how you will, couples are different. Some are like, we don't do that, period. Others are, well, let's have some context. So I don't know if there's a guiding principle, but I think like any other thing, it needs to be talked about and agreed to in some sort of way.
So I have a male best friend, but I think my situation is a little unique in that I met him and my husband at the same time, but before our relationship became serious, we had locked in as besties. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, we were all just hanging out at first, and like we remained platonic from start to finish. He was in our wedding, and godparent of our first kid. And so like for me, the thought process is I understand that there are some people who might have started off dating and eventually have became best friends. I don't have a rule of thumb, but I would take issue with, let's say, people trying out that whole bro sis thing, and that this is my best friend, knowing that there was an extensive intimate past. On the flip side, would I allow my husband, or not allow, because I don't want to think like I have to allow him, but if my husband had a female best friend within the same parameters in which I have one, I would certainly support it. But I think in actual practice, what we do is we often hang out with other couples. I mean, we're comfortable hanging out with singles that are individual friends that we've met along the way. But I find that when, the commonality thing, it's fun hanging out with couples, because you kind of avoid that. You both get a female friend and a male friend out of the deal. So, but I'm not so insecure as to think that you couldn't have a platonic relationship with the opposite sex, because I have one. But I understand that some people are apprehensive because of the way people navigate those relationships for themselves.
Yeah, I know for me. Oh, go ahead, Haley.
Well, I think me, Mo, and my boyfriend Brian, that's kind of what we are right now. Brian and Monisa have been friends for the longest time. I almost, of course, like you had mentioned, Brooke, like being platonic and having that as the foundation of your friendship means a lot. And also, in ways, it's different. I almost encourage it. Like, yeah, go get that advice from Monisa. Go ahead, do it. See what she has to say about the situation that we're in. Because I think it's impactful for them to have opinions from another female or male, depending on the situation, be it vice versa, having a best friend that's your male. I think that sometimes advice that's unbiased is maybe received a little bit more, received differently from a best friend than it is from a partner who's trying to convey fill in the blank to you. I absolutely love and adore the relationship that you have with Brian. And I think it's strong and wonderful, and it's all love, and it's nothing but respect. And that's the most important thing. Is at this point in time, I just think it's a big blend of three people who have each other's back and have their best interests at heart for each of us, and I think that that's what it's all about.
Well, thank you, Haley. I love you guys. Yeah, I was just gonna say, if I'm getting to know a guy, not the first question, but one of the first few questions that I ask is, what are your thoughts on someone that you're dating having male best friends? Because I don't have one male best friend, I have three. And they're my brothers. We have a group chat together. Like, if they could be my bridesmaids, I would I would want them to be my bridesmaids. And so because our friendship is so solid, there has not been any type of intimate feelings or anything like, ew, that's nasty. Like, I legit look at them like they are my brothers. And so I am very upfront, like, these three men, if no other men, these three men will always be in my life. And my desire is my significant other to have a relationship with those guys. They don't have to be besties. They don't have to have a group chat together, but I definitely would want my significant other to see them, know that they're not thinking anything sneaky or anything like that, and that he could go to them and have conversations with them or whatever the case may be, because they ain't going nowhere. And if you have a problem with me having them in my life, I don't know, because there's nothing going on there. And I would need you to trust me to know that, to be secure and know that nothing is going on with that particular friendship. So, you know, I'm not married, I'm not even in a relationship. And so people may be like, all right, Monisa, you may think that now, but wait till you get married. But these three men are my heart. I love them. My parents know them. They're legit like family. And I can't imagine kicking them to the curb because a man is uncomfortable with the friendship that I have with them. So we a package deal. But they'll never interfere with our relationship. So that's the thing. Like, they mind their own business. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add to that before we close out? Well, this was great, ladies. This was a really great conversation. So many different perspectives, so much wisdom, all the experience that every single one of us was able to bring to this conversation. And I'm sure we probably could have went another 30 minutes, an hour, or whatever the case may be. We may need to do a part 2, who knows? But I just want to say thank you to the panel. Thank you to our viewers, your participation, your questions, your comments in the feed. If you want to go back and watch the whole episode, if you missed it, you can go back to the Mixed Company page and it will be available on there, as well as my YouTube. But again, thank you to everybody that has supported Mixed Company from day one. We definitely appreciate you. Ray, if you're watching, we missed you, but we'll be back next month on August 28th with another episode of Mixed Company, bringing the fellas and the ladies back together. So we look forward to having that conversation. But I wish everybody the best. Blessings to everybody on the panel. Blessings to everybody that's watching. Have a safe night and a great weekend.